The night the plea was spoken, the desert was holding its breath. Wind slid low across the sand, carrying the smell of sage and cold stone. Somewhere beyond the dark hills, riders were moving. Their presence felt more than heard. A man stood alone near a dry ravine, his shadow stretched long by a thin moon. He was Apache, born of dust and fire, raised on stories where survival was earned one breath at a time. Blood darkened his sleeve. Fear pressed against his ribs, not the fear of death, but the fear of being erased without leaving a trace behind. He had run for 2 days without rest. His legs shook, his throat burned, and his spirit felt thinner than the air above the desert. The world he knew was closing in. Soldiers, bounty men. Old grudges sharpened into knives. Every path he knew had turned against him. In that place of no escape, when even the ancestors felt far away, he dropped to his knees beside a weathered stone shrine half buried in sand, a relic left by missionaries long gone. The candle there was unlit, its wick black with age, yet the man pressed his forehead to the ground as if warmth still lived inside it. His voice came out rough, almost broken. "Hide me for 3 days." That was all he asked. 3 days to let the storm pass. It's 3 days to disappear from the eyes hunting him. He did not bargain for riches or revenge. He asked for time, the one thing the desert rarely grants. The words were not shouted. They were breathed, like a secret meant only for heaven. He spoke to the Virgin, the Holy Mother the priests once spoke of. The woman said to listen, even when the world turns its back. Wind stopped. In the silence that followed, the air felt heavier, as if the night itself had leaned closer. The candle flame sparked to life without a hand touching it. Soft light spilled over stone and sand, steady and calm, nothing like fire born of flint. The man lifted his head, heart pounding, unsure if exhaustion had finally stolen his senses. Then he felt it. A presence, gentle but unmovable, like a mountain wrapped in mercy. She did not appear in thunder or blinding light. Her presence was known the way dawn is known before the sun rises. The desert warmed. Fear loosened its grip. The Apache felt seen, fully, with all his mistakes, his strength, his anger, his loyalty to a people being pushed into corners. He understood then that his plea had been heard. "It may be hidden," came the answer. Not as sound, but as certainty. "For 3 days. No, I will find you. No hand will touch you. The desert itself will keep you." Relief flooded him so fast he almost collapsed. 3 days meant life. 3 days meant another chance. Tears cut clean lines down his dust-covered face. He pressed his palms together, whispering thanks, before the words fully settled in his mind. That was when the weight returned, heavier than before. But every gift has a cost. The candle flame flickered once. The warmth dimmed, not cold, but serious. The man swallowed hard, his body already knowing what his mind had not yet caught up to. He waited, breath held. 3 years of your life, the presence continued. Not now, not in pain. They will be taken from the end. When your hair is white and your hands are tired, when you believe you have survived it all, 3 years will be mine. The desert seemed to lean away, giving him space to choose. He laughed once, sharp and unbelieving. 3 years sounded distant, almost imaginary, like a winter promised to a child in summer. He had seen too many men die young to fear old age. "If I live long enough to miss them," he said, "then they are yours." His voice steadied as he spoke, sealing the promise with more courage than certainty. The candle went out. The night returned to normal sounds. Wind, sand, a far-off howl. Yet something had changed. When hoofbeats thundered over the ridge an hour later, the riders passed within yards of where the Apache lay pressed against the ravine wall. Their torches swept the ground, their curses sharp, their rifles ready. None of them saw him. It was as if he had become part of the stone itself. For 3 days, the desert hid him. For 3 days, he did not hunger, did not thirst, did not dream. When the third night ended, he stood and walked back into the world, alive when he should have been dead. Years would pass. The frontier would change. Rail lines would cut the land. Flags would rise and fall. The Apache would build a life marked by resilience and quiet strength. Yet on certain nights, when the wind carried the sound of church bells from faraway towns, he would feel a strange ache in his chest, as if time itself were watching him. And somewhere beyond sight, the years were already being counted. When the hiding ended, the desert gave him back slowly, like a mother releasing a child she had protected too fiercely. The Apache stepped into the morning light with stiff legs and a deeper silence inside him. He did not speak of what had happened. Among his people, some things were carried alone. He took a new path north, away from the ravine, away from the riders who would still swear he vanished into thin air. From that day on, men would whisper his presence before they ever saw him. They called him Iron Elk, not for cruelty, but for the way he endured without bending. Iron Elk found work where the frontier rubbed raw against itself. He hauled timber for rail camps, broke wild horses for traders, and guided lost men through country that punished the careless. His hands grew scarred, his back thickened with muscle. He learned the language of coins and contracts, but he never trusted paper promises. At night when others drank or slept, he watched the stars. He measured time differently now, though he could not have said why. The memory of the candle flame stayed with him, steady and quiet, like an eye that never closed. In a river town carved from mud and ambition, he met Mercy Hollow. She ran the only boarding house that did not ask too many questions. Her voice was calm, her gaze sharp, her past sealed tight. People listened when she spoke, not because she was loud, but because she chose her words like tools. Mercy Hollow saw the weight Iron Elk carried before he ever named it. She did not ask where he came from. She asked where he was going. He did not answer, but he stayed. The town itself was restless. Built on trade and rumor, it fed on movement and conflict. Soldiers passed through with orders they pretended to understand. Preachers warned of sin while counting donations with careful fingers. Old grudges between settlers and tribes never cooled, only shifted shape. Iron Elk felt the tension in the way doors closed too fast and hands hovered near belts. The 3 days of hiding had saved his life, but the world he returned to had no intention of letting him rest. There were nights when the air grew thick and the bells from the small chapel rang without reason. No one else seemed to hear them. Iron Elk did. Each time, a strange pressure settled behind his eyes, not pain, but reminder. He would step outside, breathe deep, and tell himself it meant nothing. Yet the years began to move oddly. Some passed like water slipping through fingers, others dragged, heavy and slow. He noticed small things. Men his age grew tired sooner than he did. Children born after his hiding now ran the streets, their laughter sharp as birdsong. A man called Ash Crow arrived one winter, wrapped in a coat stitched from many owners. He claimed to trade in information. His eyes missed nothing. He spoke softly, the way men do when they know too much. Ash Crow watched Iron Elk with interest that felt older than curiosity. Over shared meals, he spoke of old deals made in desperate places, of prayers answered with unexpected prices. Iron Elk listened without reacting, his face a wall. But inside, something tightened. Ash Crow left a warning behind when he moved on. Time keeps its own ledger, he said, tapping the table once. It always collects. Iron Elk did not follow him outside. He stayed seated until the room emptied, until Mercy Hollow met his eyes from across the floor. She did not smile. She poured him coffee instead, black and strong as if it were a shield. Seasons turned. The rail line pushed west. Violence flared and faded. Iron Elk built a life that looked solid from the outside. He helped raise Mercy Hollow's nephew after a fever took the boy's parents. He fixed fences, settled disputes, buried the dead. Yet on certain mornings, he woke with the feeling that a piece of him had already been taken, though nothing was missing. His reflection began to change in ways he could not explain. Lines formed, then smoothed again. Strength stayed when it should have waned. Word spread of a shrine uncovered by a flood far south. Stone white beneath the mud, a place where candles burned without hands. Pilgrims argued over its meaning. Soldiers argued over who owned the land. Iron Elk felt the pull of it like a slow drumbeat. Mercy Hollow noticed the way his gaze drifted toward the horizon. "You cannot outrun what waits," she said once, not unkindly. He nodded, though he did not agree or disagree. One night, as a storm gathered, the chapel bells rang again, louder this time. Iron Elk stepped outside into rain that felt warmer than it should. For a moment, he thought he saw a light where no fire stood. He closed his eyes, steadying himself, unaware that, somewhere beyond sight, the counting had begun to speed up. The storm did not break the town, but it changed how people moved through it. Rain soaked the streets into dark ribbons, and the river climbed its banks with a low, patient threat. Iron Elk felt watched in those days, not by men with rifles or badges, but by something that had no shape. The bells fell silent again, yet their echo stayed lodged in his chest. He worked longer hours, kept his hands busy, told himself that a man only feels hunted when he stops moving. Mercy Hollow saw the strain, even when he tried to hide it. She watched him from the doorway of the boarding house as he sharpened tools that did not need sharpening. "You are carrying a shadow that does not belong to this town," she said one evening, her voice low so the walls would not hear. Iron Elk met her gaze and almost spoke the truth, almost instead. He asked about the river level, about the railmen, about anything that would keep her from asking more. Mercy Hollow let him deflect, but her eyes followed him long after he stepped away. Across town, the arrival of Marshal Red Clay stirred old dust. Red Clay was built like a gatepost, solid and unmoving, with a lawman's stare that could weigh a man down. He claimed order was his purpose, but Iron Elk sensed another hunger beneath it. Red Clay asked questions about travelers, about shrines, about rumors of miracles whispered by campfire light. He lingered too long at the chapel, his boots leaving clean prints on the stone floor. When his eyes landed on Iron Elk, they stayed there a breath longer than courtesy allowed. Others felt it too. High Ridge, a rancher with land carved from stubborn ground, began to fortify his fences as if expecting siege. Willow Kane, a schoolteacher from the east with ink-stained fingers, started collecting stories from the elders, writing down things that had never been written before. She asked Iron Elk about Apache legends of time and trade. He answered carefully, choosing words that did not invite more. Willow Kane smiled as if she knew what he was avoiding. The town gathered one night at Mercy Hollow's place, when the river rose another foot. Voices filled the room, fear dressed as laughter. Iron Elk stood near the back, listening. Someone mentioned a man seen walking dry through flooded ground. Another swore a candle burned in the chapel during the storm, though no one had lit it. Red Clay watched the crowd from the corner, his hand resting easy near his belt. When Iron Elk felt that familiar pressure behind his eyes, he knew the stories were not drifting. They were circling. Later, alone beneath the porch roof, Iron Elk found Ashcrow waiting, as if the rain had delivered him. His coat was newer now, but his eyes held the same knowing calm. "Time bends around some men," Ashcrow said softly. "It makes others nervous." Iron Elk did not ask how he knew. He asked what he wanted. Ashcrow glanced toward the chapel. "Debts attract attention," he replied, "especially old ones." That night, Iron Elk dreamed of the ravine again. Not as it had been, but as it would be. Empty, silent. The candle flame hovered in the dark without a shrine to hold it. He woke before dawn, heart steady but heavy. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air felt too clean, like after a decision has already been made. Days passed with a strange double rhythm. Work continued. Meals were eaten, laughter returned in small doses, yet beneath it all ran a tighter current. Red Clay questioned Mercy Hollow about Iron Elk's past. She answered with practiced calm, giving nothing away. Willow Kane shared her notes with the marshal, hoping knowledge might prevent harm. High Ridge sent riders to watch the southern road, claiming caution but practicing defense. Iron Elk stood between worlds without meaning to. To the town, he was a pillar, reliable and strong. To the desert, he was marked. He began to feel moments slip. An afternoon would vanish into evening without memory of the hours between. His hands sometimes moved before his thoughts, catching a falling glass, stopping a door before it slammed. Small things, but enough to unsettle him. At the edge of town, the chapel door creaked open one evening, though no wind stirred. Iron Elk felt the pull again, stronger now. He did not enter. He stood in the street, rainwater drying on his boots, and wondered if the 3 years promised were already pressing close, reshaping time around him. From a distance, the bells rang once, sharp and clear. Red Clay turned his head. Mercy Hollow stepped into the doorway. Willow Kane paused mid-sentence. None of them knew what the sound truly meant. Iron Elk did. He felt the unseen ledger close a little tighter, and for the first time since the ravine, fear returned, not of death, but of what living would finally cost. After the bell rang, the town never fully settled again. People went on with their days, but their voices stayed lower, their movements sharper. Iron Elk felt as if every step he took echoed louder than it should. Time pressed close now, could sense it in his bones, like a storm forming beyond the horizon. The promise made in the desert was no longer distant. It was walking toward him, patient and certain. Marshal Red Clay moved with purpose, posted men near the chapel and along the river road claiming protection. But his eyes always returned to Iron Elk. One afternoon he stopped him in the open street, dust swirling around their boots. "You have been here a long time for a man with no past," Red Clay said. Iron Elk met his gaze, calm and steady. "A past is not always something a man carries openly," he replied. The marshal studied him, searching for cracks, then stepped aside. For now, Mercy Hollow grew more restless. She began keeping the boarding house open later, watching the door, listening for footsteps that did not belong. She confronted Iron Elk one night when the lamps burned low and the town slept uneasy. "Whatever is circling you, it is touching all of us now," she said. Her voice did not shake, but her hands did. Iron Elk wanted to pull her away from it all, to confess everything, yet the words stuck. He only said, "I will not let it harm this place." Mercy Hollow searched his face and nodded, choosing trust over answers. Willow Kane uncovered something troubling in her quiet work. Old records from the mission days spoke of bargains struck in desperation, of miracles followed by long reckonings. She read of men who outlived their enemies only to fade too quickly at the end, their final years taken like a toll. She brought the papers to Iron Elk, her eyes filled with concern rather than fear. "Some debts are not meant to be paid alone," she said. Iron Elk folded the pages carefully, feeling the weight of truth settle deeper. Ash Crow returned again, as if drawn by the tightening air. He warned Iron Elk that forces beyond the town had taken interest. "Word travels when time behaves strangely," he said. "Some seek to control it, others to profit from it." Ash Crow glanced toward Red Clay's office. Not all collectors wear holy faces. Then he left, vanishing into the crowd as easily as he arrived. The river rose again, higher than before, threatening to spill into the streets. Men worked through the night building barriers. Iron Elk stood shoulder to shoulder with them, his strength tireless, almost unsettling. High Ridge noticed it and frowned, but said nothing. The town needed every strong back it had. As dawn broke, the river held. A small victory, yet no one celebrated. That morning, the chapel doors stood wide open. Inside, the air glowed with a soft light, though no candles burned. Red Clay ordered the place cleared, his voice tight. Iron Elk arrived just as the marshal stepped inside. For a moment, the world seemed to slow. Iron Elk felt the presence again, not speaking, only waiting. Red Clay froze, his confident posture faltering as if something unseen pressed against him. He backed out quickly, color drained from his face. "Lock it," he snapped to his men. No one enters. The town buzzed with rumor. Some spoke of blessings. Others whispered curses. Mercy Hollow gathered people into her house that night, offering food and warmth, anchoring them together. Iron Elk stood apart, watching faces he had come to care for. He realized then that the 3 years promised were not just his to lose. They were tied to everything he had built since. As night deepened, the bells rang again, not from the chapel, but from everywhere at once. Iron Elk felt a sharp pull in his chest, stronger than ever before. He staggered, catching himself on a post. Mercy Hollow rushed to him, gripping his arm. "Ow!" "Stay," she said fiercely. "Do not go wherever this is pulling you."
Iron
Elk looked at her at the town beyond her shoulder and felt something shift. The desert deal had been made in loneliness. What came next would not be. He walked toward the chapel before fear could stop him. Red Clay tried to bar his way, but Iron Elk did not slow. The marshal stepped aside, shaken. Inside, the light waited, calm and unwavering. Iron Elk felt time stretch, fold, and tighten around him. Memories surged. The ravine, the candle, the promise spoken without fully understanding its weight. Outside, the river surged once more, higher than ever, testing the barriers. The town rallied, men and women working together, refusing to break. Mercy Hollow stood in the rain, watching the chapel door, her heart pounding. Willow Kane clutched her papers, praying knowledge would matter. High Ridge held the line at the water's edge, shouting orders into the storm. Inside the chapel, Iron Elk took a breath and stepped forward, knowing the moment he had outrun for years had finally arrived. The light brightened, the air warm and heavy with meaning. Outside, the bells rang one final time, clear and strong, as the town stood on the edge of change, waiting to see what the cost of survival would truly be. Inside the chapel, the light did not burn or blind. It settled around Iron Elk like a memory remembered kindly. He stood still, breathing slow, feeling the weight of years press against his back. The presence he had known in the desert returned, not as judgment but as witness. The bargain hung between them, solid and undeniable. 3 days had been given. 3 years were owed. Iron Elk did not beg this time. He spoke with the calm of a man who had learned what living meant. "I asked to be hidden," he said softly. "I did not know then what I would be hiding from, or what I would be living for." His thoughts went to Mercy Hollow's steady hands, to Willow Kane's careful words, to the town that had grown around him like shelter instead of cage. "If the years must be taken," he continued, "then let them be taken from the man I was before I chose to stand for others." The silence stretched, not heavy, but thoughtful. The light shifted, warming the old wood, the worn stone. Iron Elk felt time move again, not pulling forward, but folding back on itself. The presence answered without words, and understanding flowed through him. The cost had never been about punishment. It had been about balance. Outside, the river crested, and then began to fall. The barriers held. The town felt it before they saw it, a release, like a long-held breath finally let go. Mercy Hollow wiped rain from her face as the bells went quiet. Willow Kane lowered her papers, realizing the stories she carried were no longer warnings, but lessons. Highridge laughed once, loud and surprised, as the water pulled back from his land. Inside the chapel, Iron Elk felt the years settle into place. They were not stolen from his future. They were returned to the past he had already outrun. The weariness that had followed him lifted, his body felt right again, not younger but whole. The presence faded, leaving behind only warmth and the faint scent of candle smoke, though no flame remained. When Iron Elk stepped outside, dawn was breaking.
Storm clouds thinned,
Lights spilling across the wet streets. Mercy Hollow reached him first. She did not ask what had happened. She simply held his arm, grounding him in the world he had chosen. Red Clay stood a few steps back, his lawman's certainty replaced by something humbler. "Some things are bigger than orders," he admitted. Iron Elk nodded. Red Clay tipped his hat and walked away, leaving the past where it belonged. Ashcrow watched from the edge of the street, a rare smile crossing his face. Ledger balanced, he murmured to himself before turning south, his work finally done. Willow Kane approached next, eyes bright with relief. "The stories will change now," she said. Iron Elk answered, "They always do when people choose each other." Life did not become perfect. It became honest. The town rebuilt what the river had tested. Mercy Hollow's boarding house grew louder, fuller, its doors open to anyone willing to work and belong. High Ridge's land prospered, shared more fairly than before. Willow Kane kept writing, not just of bargains and miracles, but of resilience and community. Red Clay remained martial, steadier now, less eager to chase shadows. Iron Elk stayed. He no longer felt time slipping strangely around him. The days moved forward, as days should, each one earned. When his hair finally grayed, it did so gently. When his hands tired, they did so after good work. He told no one the full story of the desert or the chapel. He did not need to. The proof lived in how he stood, how he listened, how he chose. Years later, when children asked about the bells that never rang anymore, Mercy Hollow would smile and say they rang when they were needed. Iron Elk would sit nearby, watching the horizon, feeling gratitude instead of fear. He had learned that survival alone was not the prize. Living with purpose was. The desert still stretched wide beyond the town, ancient and patient. It held no claim on him now. Iron Elk had faced the cost of his plea and found something greater in return. It's not stolen years, but shared ones. Not hiding, but belonging. And in that balance, the story found its end, not in silence, but in the steady, enduring sound of a life well lived.